Welcome into the 90 plus 2 podcast. I'm Sammy St.Jean, and this is Jeremy Striano, and this is the crossroad between pundits and fans. We are aspiring soccer journalists who have a love for the game, and this is our starting point. This is episode 3. Welcome in, guys. Jeremy, how you doing?
Sammy, any better, I'd be twins. And you know what I was thinking too? I think before we start the episode, before we get into our segments, we really should address the kit. I think everyone kept asking, like, oh, what kit you gonna wear? What kit you gonna wear? And that was gonna be a little spiel. So last week, if I remember correctly, was the AC Milan away kit from last season.
Even though you were rooting for Napoli.
Even though I was rooting for Napoli, right? Being a little hypocritical there. But this week I'm going with actually one of my favorite. I would probably put this in a top 2. This is from the 2021-2022 season. The away jersey for Marseille, the Uber Eats. I know, believe me, I know Uber Eats is in a little bit of, whatever. But this jersey is arguably one of the cleanest jerseys ever. You really can't see it in the Zoom camera, but behind it is like the city of Marseille. Some of the houses have little lights on them. This is a jersey that I personally think will be worth a lot of money, like later on, because I don't know if you're familiar with retro kits and everything. Like, it's such a big thing on YouTube right now, like the whole kit, retro kits and finding kits from like the 90s and whatever. This kit's a beauty and I love it, and I think it's going to be worth a lot of money one day. But
it's because you wore it. That's why.
I mean, this one possibly, like this very one maybe, but no, this kit's awesome. I love it. Marseille's got some of the finest kits, in my opinion, and some of the cleanest in Liga. But yeah, we're doing well. We have a really fun episode planned for today. We got some great topics, some that we're going to highlight, maybe, tease a little bit for next week's episode. But eventually, we're going to talk about that team right behind you there. That flag is just staring right at you. And man, oh man, have they begun to irritate me. And I'm not even a Tottenham fan.
But all right, so I think that segues us very well into what's the tea. It's going to be London centric today. Let's start with Chelsea. So this is one we're going to run through fairly quickly, and that being we're going to have a guest. We're not going to spoil the guest. The guest knows who they are. They are a listener of the podcast. But they're going to come on next week and talk all things Chelsea. So that what's the tea section is going to be very Chelsea heavy next week. So if you're interested in hearing about that, make sure to tune in next week. Briefly going to run through the topics, give a brief opinion, but I want to save a lot of that for next week and complain about Tottenham a little more this week. So first up, Chelsea. The question is, where do you begin with Chelsea? So much has happened in the past 7 days. First thing, I mean, it is the obvious starting point. Graham Potter is sacked. He is let go. He gets barely half a year to try to fix a unstable project, to say the very least. And then Lampard looks to be the solution to finish out the rest of the season. It doesn't look like he's going to be a permanent solution by any stretch of the imagination. I also saw some rumblings that Ashley Cole might join his staff. Should be kind of cool. But the thing I really want to ask before, I don't really want to get too much into the overall, the nitty gritty here. We'll save that for next week. But I want to ask Jeremy, whose fault is what's going on at Chelsea right now?
I mean, you can blame a lot of people, right? You can blame Bowley. You can blame, the coaching staff. To me, and I don't want to think about this too, but I was thinking about this as we were prepping for today's episode. Is Brighton where they are if Potter stays? Because right now they sit at 6th, I believe, as of today. Are they there if Potter's there? I love Graham Potter at Brighton. I really did. I knew the fans loved him. Like, seeing the Amex Stadium, you get happy. Or I mean, you don't get happy if they beat your team, right? But you kind of get excited when a new team, takes that European spot, a team like a Wolves or a Brighton. You're like, okay, I see you guys. Now we might have to actually have to keep an eye on you for our schedule. To me, I don't know. I'm going to go with Bowley just because of the lack of experience at a club like a Chelsea. You got to remember, and we talked about this in episode 1. This was a league. The Premier League was owned by just a few teams in the past few decades. One of those teams was Chelsea. Chelsea was a dominant force in football. And now I look at them mid-table and I'm like, man, like, where are you? Like, what is your identity? I go back to that video of that Chelsea fan where he's like, there is no passion, there is no vision, there is no aggression. Like, it's true. It's very true right now. There's just no identity with this club. And to me, you hit the nail on the head. I didn't think Potter was given a fair chance at Chelsea. I really don't. And now, I hope he's able to prove himself. I really do. I hope another team gives him that chance. I think he's a quality manager. I saw what he did with Brighton. To me, Brighton is a solid Premier League team for years on end. When they came into the Premier League a few years back, they really made some traction, and they just became like a solid team. Nothing makes me more happier when teams that get promoted just smack right in the middle. Because like, okay, we belong. It's just, you're just proven. It's props to the chairman, props to the manager, and then just props to the club and the fans overall. Like, you belong in the Premier League, and Brighton did that. Now, look, again, I'm gonna go back to Graham Potter. I love him. I love him as a manager. I love his style. I love his demeanor. They really screwed him, man. I hate to say that, and I don't want to, I want to be respectful, but they really did. They gave him the short end of the stick here, and I really do hope that a club gives him another opportunity, whether if that's in the Prem, we might be talking about another team in a few minutes' time, but whether if it's in another, we call it it's like the Power Five. There's a Power Five conference, and if a team, and I don't see him going to like Spain or Italy. He's English style football, and I think that another Premier League club who's looking to have a change of scenery, a spring cleaning, so to speak, I hope a team gives him a chance because he deserves to be at the top level of this sport.
No, I completely agree, and I do think he didn't get a fair shake. I do think at the very least you got to give him his own summer transfer window to try to do something.
Absolutely.
I mean, I completely understand Chelsea was throwing money around, but they were doing so in the same way that I thought Newcastle was going to. I was a little afraid initially when the purchase of Newcastle came in that they were going to throw around stupid money and not really think they were just going to buy players for the sake of buying players. And that's really what Chelsea have done, and Newcastle have been spectacular. There's a reason they're third in the table. They're going about their project the right way. But this Chelsea team, they're just, I think that lack of the thing that confuses me the most too is that they create a lot of opportunities still in the final third.
Yeah.
Their XG is pretty solid in almost every single game. I would say they win on XG in almost every game they've played. But here they are, back to back 0 goal results against Aston Villa, who's been in fantastic form. Don't want to take any credit away from them. They've been incredible. Again, they've been under Emery since he took over. They've been unbelievable. And then Liverpool, that was the most boring game of football I might have ever watched between them and Chelsea. That was, I took a fantastic nap in the middle of that because it put me to sleep. It was just awful. But Chelsea created more than Liverpool did in that contest. But yeah, we'll kind of leave I would say the rest of our rambling and debate and stuff for next week. Do want to at least give credit to and a little shout out to N'Golo Kante. Welcome back to the Prem. He sat out for the entirety of Graham Potter.
Yeah, right.
But it was good to see him. I think football is better with him on the pitch than off the pitch. So certainly exciting to see him back.
Yeah, the happiest man in football, man. Nothing makes me happier when I see that clip resurface from the France World Cup, and it's that chant that they do, like the hey N'Golo Kante, nah, and it's like, it's I forget what it translates to. It's like he's better than Leo Messi, but we all know he's a cheater. It's just they're making a dig at him, but because he's like the cleanest, most respectful man, so soft spoken. But real quick before we move on from Chelsea, there's a song by the Beatles, and it's "Can't Buy Me Love," and it's the lyric is, "I don't care too much for money, money can't buy me love," and that's true. They dish it out, no problem. But and then you talk about XG, their players, these quality players automatically put their XG, to a certain extent, like a Joao Felix, like an Enzo Hernandez, like a Kai Havertz, and Pulisic. I don't know what to tell you. Chelsea is just like, man. But you know what this means, though? When, to me, I think next year, no matter who they appoint, and we'll talk about this next week, I think they're destined for a bounce back. A lot of teams, when they miss out on European football and they drive all their focus on the league, they tend to do well, in my opinion. I saw it with United when they finished 8th a few years back. And, when they brought in Ole, and it was like, okay, hey, we're back in the Champions League. Now, they didn't go far in the Champions League, but they qualified. So I'm going to put money on Chelsea making European football at the end of next season. Bank to the bank.
But at the same, I want to give one more response, then we'll move on.
Yeah.
At the same time, if they don't find a way, one, for bullying the sport to just center and invest in one manager, but also if they don't have the right manager that they're actually willing to buy into a project for, because there's also reports, I don't know how true they are, that like these players are making fun of Graham Potter, making Harry Potter jokes, et cetera, et cetera. So like, honestly, I think it's kind of funny, but feel bad for Graham Potter, but I love Harry Potter. So if they don't find a way to fix the culture, fix the mentality, fix everything around that club, I might bet against you, Jeremy.
Okay.
But we can move on to the other club that is also in shambles in London, Tottenham Hotspur.
Hey.
They are in a manager search as well. And to give you an update, not a thing. Not a freaking thing. They have done nothing. It has been quiet. Nagelsmann and Enrique both prefer the Chelsea project.
Oh, shocker.
Yeah, it's a shocker. It is a shocker, actually. And I want to say this. I completely get that they have more investment behind their projects right now, even though there isn't really a project. It's kind of just throwing money at the wind. And I understand the issues that Tottenham has and a lot of questions, but why would you want to coach Chelsea right now? I would be less offended as a Tottenham fan if someone said that they'd rather be unemployed versus taking Chelsea over Tottenham right now. Both of these clubs are disasters. There should be no real preference one way or the other as far as I'm concerned, because if I'm a manager, especially one that is as quality as the ones that have their hats in the ring for some of these jobs, I'd want to stay as far away from both these projects as possible. Especially mainly with Tottenham until they can figure out what's going on with their director of football, and they get some stability around everything and maybe figure out whether Harry Kane's going to want to stay or not. But I don't think he gives them their answer until they figure out who that manager is. But it's just so hard to see them preferring that Chelsea project. Obviously, as a rival, it's tough to see that. But I don't know. Chelsea's project, when you're thinking about picking up and being the manager of a team that's 11th in the table right now, the last out of every team that isn't actively in a relegation battle, is a little disconcerting. But talking about some of the links for Tottenham, Vincent Kompany was one that actually stood out for me, and I was not opposed to that idea. And I was also seeing a little bit of Graham Potter. I don't know if Potter would want to go to Tottenham, go to London. But I wouldn't hate that Tottenham doesn't necessarily back their managers properly, so I don't know if it's the right spot for him. But I wouldn't hate giving him a shot. Vincent Kompany's an up and coming manager. Wouldn't hate seeing investing in the future. If you're in a spot where you have to sell Harry Kane because his contract expires the following year, Vincent Kompany is a decent option because you can really start young and reset, maybe a more firm reset and invest in youth. So I wouldn't hate that option, but whatever Tottenham does, they have to have a clear, direct decision. Like they actually have to have a project develop. It can't just be these willy-nilly decision-making that really doesn't seem cohesive. And it actually has to be centered on winning. You have to have an actual objective, because this club hasn't been playing with a serious objective of winning, getting trophies, anything along those lines. Their trophy cabinet is vacant. I don't even know how to describe it. There is nothing in there, and the Audi Cup doesn't count. It doesn't. It doesn't at all.
It doesn't.
It counts as much as the Lakers' last title. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
Wow.
Count. Shout out Gabe Carr-Johnson. But all right, so moving on a little bit more, please keep Puck off my feed. I don't want to see any more links about him to Tottenham. No Pochettino to Tottenham. It's not happening. Please stop. Move on. Just move on. Just move on, Tottenham. Just move on, fans, club, regardless. Move on. So now that we got that out of the way, I do also want to shout out one person that I don't think is getting enough credit within the Tottenham organization, and that's Ryan Mason. He was noticeably heated during that last game. Obviously turned into a 1-1 result that Tottenham really should have seen out against Everton. But he was clearly upset on the touchline after a poor performance. And I do also want to say that I'm a little disappointed. I understand you can't change a ton with 10 games left in the season, but that looked a lot like Conte ball. It looked the exact same. I was just as bored as I was watching the Liverpool-Chelsea game. Like, it was dreadful. And then final note before I let you kind of touch on Tottenham, because I know you mentioned you had something to say. James Maddison, please. I would love to see James Maddison don this badge right here. I would love to see James Maddison. They haven't had a creative midfielder in a little while. Would love to see James Maddison. If he wants to bring Brendan Rodgers with him, that also wouldn't be a terrible option for Tottenham going forward. James Maddison actually had a really nice post on social media about his relationship with his gaffer. So I thought that was nice. But go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I think James Maddison would, as much as I would hate to see it, but I'd be happy for you. I think you're either getting one of two Premier League midfielders who are currently playing for clubs that are in the relegation battle. One of them is James Maddison. The other would be James Ward-Prowse.
20th and 19th. Southampton's in 20th. Leicester City's in 19th.
Right. In terms of the new gaffer for Tottenham, the season next year is going to be the most highly motivated a Tottenham club should be because it's more likely than not that Arsenal will be winning this league. I think it's almost set in stone. As much as City's putting in a valiant effort, Arsenal's just not dropping points. They're just not. The next person to become the manager of Tottenham Hotspur should have a fire of 1,000 suns burning under them, being like, hey, fellas, you see this BS going on over here down the road? Yeah, that's not happening again. And as funny as it sounds, it really is true. It really is true. You don't know how many times, I saw City win the league. The Aguero goal that won the league on the last kick of the season. Like, yeah, that's a real kick, kick in the stomach there. But whoever it is, I don't hate Brendan Rodgers being the new gaffer for Tottenham Hotspur. I saw what he did at Celtic. I actually saw what he did at Leicester. And I saw what he did, before that with Liverpool. I think he's a great manager. I really do. I think he thrives. Now, to me, Leicester is just not a fantastic product anymore. They're not. Apart from like a few golden eggs, spread around that field there. One of them is James Maddison. Harvey Barnes might be another. They don't impress me. It's like Shania Twain said, that don't impress me much. They're like Brad Pitt, a car, a rocket scientist. They don't impress me much, Leicester City.
References galore from you today.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a walking reference machine. But Tottenham do. Tottenham does impress me. They do. I like their product a lot. And another thing too, with the attractiveness of the Tottenham manager role, your stadium, man. Your stadium. It is brand spanking new. You fill that every day, which you pretty much do every day with just passionate Spurs fans. That stadium it is gorgeous, man. I see how you make a beer at the stadium where you put the cup down and the beer shoots up. I'm like, dude, Old Trafford doesn't have that. That's so cool. But long story, I'm gonna put this ahead, so we can move on a little bit. I really do hope that Tottenham do appoint someone like sooner rather than later. And I get it if they want to like wait out the season. What's the point? You're still fighting for European football. You're still fighting for Champions League. You're still fighting against Newcastle and United for 3 and 4. Yeah, you're pretty much locked for Europa, but there's still a little bit of fight left. It's about what? We're about a month away from the season ending, little more. There's still plenty of quality points there on the table that you can take to the bank and take to Champions League, group stage next season. And if you don't do that, if you don't address this need, if you just let this vacant position just kind of, gain a little bit of dust over time, man, what does it look like? Like what? How does that make your club look? Like I really am offended that people want to manage Chelsea over Tottenham. I do. I am. I know I was like shocker, making a little joke at you, but look at the standings right now, man. Look at the standings. They speak for themselves.
I think
Absolutely.
I do want to say I think the biggest question mark around wanting to coach Tottenham and not wanting to coach Tottenham is whether Harry Kane stays, because this project is infinitely more enticing if you have a centerpiece like Harry Kane.
Right.
And he's your selling point. You have a fantastic stadium and facilities and all that, and you got Harry Kane right now. And you've got a bunch of young pieces that could be molded into something. You've got some pretty solid wingbacks, especially one that'll come in from transfer next season. They've got a lot of pieces, but finding the right manager to bring that all together and deciding whether Enick and Daniel Levy are the group and the person that's going to help them get there, that's the bigger question for me. Is I don't think those two aspects of Tottenham are right, and I think Spurs need to revisit that before maybe they find the success that I and the rest of the fan base is longing for right now. But we'll move on and we will touch on a little bit of championship. Briefly touching on Queens Park Rangers, who started the season very well. They were at second, I believe around 18 points at some point in the season, sitting second, just out of first, and now they're in 18th position. Jeremy, you said that this little fall off reminds you of something.
Yeah, it does. As a fan of a Premier League team, early on, I became a Man United fan around like 2010, 2011, right around when United sold Ronaldo to Madrid. You saw these teams like QPR, like Blackburn Rovers in the Premier League, and you hate to see teams fall off. No bigger fall off to me does this remind me of than Sunderland. Sunderland to me was a world, like they were a world power. The Stadium of Light, if you look it up, I believe it's one of the biggest stadiums in the championship. And when they were playing in League One, like they would play against teams like Doncaster or Forest Green Rovers, and these stadiums barely hold like 10,000 people. The Stadium of Light holds way more than that, my friend. And seeing a team fall off that's just invested so much money, and then now they're losing money, it really is sad. The business of football, if you're not a world power, it's very cutthroat in my opinion. And when you work for a club, you invest so much money, in not only players but in your staff and your facilities. Seeing QPR kind of fall off really hurts, because QPR was a name that you saw in FIFA and you saw in the Prem, and I just don't like it. And it makes me sad, even though like my team is like, hey, we're fourth in the Prem and we're probably going to Champions League next year. Yeah, you feel for teams, people that support their local team, like a QPR, like a Blackburn, like a Blackpool. Um, yeah, I don't like seeing QPR. They were a name that's just is now slowly kind of fading out right before our eyes. And you gotta love Loftus Road. It was one of my favorite stadiums to play in FIFA on like Ultimate Team. And it's just got the blue borders, and it looks so like dark, but it's got a really cool vibe. But best of luck to QPR. Hopefully they bounce back soon.
All right, so now we'll leave England finally, and we'll actually go to something we haven't talked really about, and that's going to be Ajax and Feyenoord. They had two different headlines come up, and Jeremy will get your reaction here. They had the game stopped twice during the course of the game. We're not even concerned about the result of the game, but the actions that happened at the beginning. Fan culture is kind of going to be the theme of, I would say, the rest of What's the Tea. The first bit being that they stopped the game at the very beginning and had to take players off the pitch because of smoke that was being generated by the home crowd Feyenoord fans. And then later, Feyenoord fans throwing stuff at a Ajax player resulted in a stoppage of play as well. A bloody player as well had an injury to the head. So Jeremy wanted to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best parts of football is being a supporter. It's being a fan. It's donning the shirt of the club that you support. Sammy's got the flag there. I'm obviously not wearing a badge that I support right now, although I don't mind Marseille. But like for me, I get that feeling when I throw on a United top, or I throw on, my Red Bull jersey or my scarf and whatever. Being a fan is tremendous. It's a whole new experience. However, however, um, I'm very familiar with hooliganism in the world of football. I've seen a lot of documentaries and movies that regard the culture of football and fandom and whatnot. And man, I could not imagine being a fan who just like, look, I'll be frank. Yeah, do I make fun of like City and Arsenal and Tottenham at times? Yeah, of course I'm going to. Am I gonna like want to like throw something at them to hurt them? Like these footballers are people too. Yes, they make a lot of money doing something that we love to watch and once played. Yeah, but they're human beings, guys. This can get taken away like that. And it's going to come up again in another story that Sammy's going to highlight as well. But this isn't the first time this has happened. I believe me, it makes me mad because, as a fan, you don't want players to like not like, support their fans anymore. You know what I mean? And you don't want to break that trust. So having that relationship between the fan and the player and the fan and the team is special. But when it crosses the line, it's these acts are criminal. These are criminal acts. I've seen buses you know, get windows shattered by bottles and bricks and crap like that. And it makes me mad. Yeah, do I really despise DC United and New York City FC when they come into Red Bull Arena? Of course. Of course, I'm going to chant. I'm going to do all that. Am I going to start fights with people? No, because I'm not an idiot. Because I have a brain. And look, I get it. You might think, oh, Jeremy, you're really like making this a real passionate rant. It's a passionate rant because it's just an ongoing issue. And it's really dumb. And it's really, really dumb. And you don't want to ruin it for your club. You don't want to ruin it for the other fans that go and like if a dad's taking a son, but he's got to see, taking a son or a daughter and seeing a player get, either we'll bring this up, either being abused by chance, having objects thrown at him. I've seen both of it. I've seen both of it on TV. And it's a real shame. It really is.
Yeah, I think it's tough because you want fans to be passionate. You want them to show that passion, but there's always a right and a wrong way to do so.
To an extent.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah. And not even to an extent, because when you pass that extent, that's the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think there's a right and wrong way. And as long as you stay on that the right side of basically just not being a bad person, I think is what it basically boils down to, is just be a fan of your club and less a hater of the other club. I know there's going to be some of that. And you can have, the thing is, the right way to do it is the chants, the songs about the other club. Like, there's songs that make fun of Tottenham that are frankly hilarious.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
That's where that kind of side of football, I think, is better, obviously, versus what we're seeing. And I think it really hit ahead with another situation of racial abuse that came up with Romelu Lukaku. There's been a lot of issues involving Vinicius Jr., one of the stars of La Liga and world football right now. Literally, as far as I'm concerned, the last person who should be targeted with any kind of racial abuse. Not that obviously anyone should, but Vinicius is growing the game. He's been a big part of Real Madrid, and he's arguably been their best player this season. And then you get an instance where Lukaku, he's being racially abused. He scores the equalizer that ends up saving the game for his club, and then he gets a red card for the post events of that goal. He gets I believe he gets a 1-game ban as a result of the red card. Other bans going around for some of the other players involved from Juventus. 1-game ban for the Juventus fans when they next season, I believe, in the Cup competition in the Coppa Italia. But how do you give Lukaku a red in that situation? I can't even fathom that. Was still wrapping my head around that. There's absolutely no way, shape, or form, no world that should be the case. Especially because it's as a referee, you're not unaware that that's happening.
Right.
You're not unaware of it. So if a player has a passionate response to having a goal to spite those fans that have been racially abusing him the whole game, there is no way, shape, or form you should be able to even conceive the thought of giving Lukaku a red card in that instance. And then there should be no way, shape, or form that a fan considers doing that in the first place. Um, there's no place for this in any sport. It comes up in NFL football. It comes up as a Celtics fan. It's come up in the NBA a little bit this season. Jaylen Brown's addressed it there. There is no place for anything racist or racial abuse in sport. Period. End of conversation. There is just no reason anything like that. The game is beautiful, especially soccer. It is the beautiful game because of how many people it can play it, how wide it reaches, how involved. Like, just this is the one sport I would say that it touches everywhere in the entire world as far as I'm aware. It brings together so many countries. It's so disconcerting to see these instances come up with some of the biggest stars in the game, and you cannot like players, you can have beef with their team, all of that. Completely get it. I'm not a big Arsenal guy. I don't really like Gabriel Jesus. I'm not going to say anything bad about him though, because he's a solid player, and I got to acknowledge it. His team's top of the league. There's ways to acknowledge things like you don't have to be a fan. You can even hate a player, even though hate's a strong word. You can't just again go about things the right way versus the wrong way. Use your head, Jeremy.
Well, real quick before because I know we have a lot to cover here, but my one point is going to be this: being a fan is a privilege. It is, and it's an extracurricular activity in your daily life. And when you abuse this policy, you know, it, to me, it's just sickening. It really is because I remember going about my life and like my teenage years being like, you know what sport has no drama? Hockey. There's no drama in hockey. There's no, you know, racially driven hate towards anybody in hockey. Now, the percentage of, African American players is predominantly lower, in hockey than in other sports, but it happened with Devontae Smith-Pelly of the Capitals, and it sickened me. It really did. Seeing it with Romelu Lukaku, look, he was a former United guy. Was he the best United player? I have my opinions on him, but this stuff's sad because it doesn't belong anywhere. And sports should be fun. They should be, again, I go back to your point that you made, like there's a right and a wrong. This is wrong. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
So obviously not easy to switch topics. We're going to try and get maybe on a little more positive note, unless you're a Bayern Munich fan, and just wrap up this section. And then we'll get into our top 5 MLS rundown, have our fun section. But I think that more serious conversation, those points need to be said. A little breaking news on a tweet from Fabrizio Romano: West Ham board has not changed their mind on David Moyes. He's going to stay at the helm. So just thought that was an interesting point to bring up. Right or wrong decision. Actually, Jeremy, let's get a reaction. How you feeling about that one?
Look, as a fan of a team that once had David Moyes at the helm, look, I go back to the Stormzy quote. I come to your team and I up. I'm David Moyes. He's really proved that wrong at West Ham, and he's become their guy. And I have my opinions on him. Is he my favorite Prem manager? No, but he's a fellow Scotsman. So, Alba Gabra, big up to David Moyes, but I think the seat is getting a little warm. So if West Ham don't qualify for any, I call it extracurricular football. So like European, Conference League, Europa, or Champions League. If they don't qualify next year, he might have to be sent to packing. So
The only reason I understand what you're saying. The only reason I'm kind of scratching my head is, does he deserve his job more than Brendan Rodgers does?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Because if honestly, if you said to me, say you and I were running a football club, and
Oh God, what?
oh
Pray
my
for those
God,
fans. Pray for those
right?
fans.
And you came to me and said, Jeremy, we have two potential managerial candidates, David Moyes and Brendan Rodgers.
Rodgers.
I'm taking Brendan Rodgers all day. And I hope we get the Rodgers that we saw at Celtic Park. That is my tier. I know it's the Scottish Premier League. No one no one talks smack about the Scottish Premier League. I'm a big sucker for a little SPL football. But the Brendan Rodgers Celtic, oh, class, man, class. But no, yeah, I mean, congrats to Moyes. He's got another year to prove himself. And West Ham's a team that really needs to like find their identity once again. Back I love that West Ham team back with like, Enter Valencia. Mark Noble was their captain. They had really great players, and like Angelo Ogbonna was coming up, and there was just some great teams. Even Andy Carroll. Andy Carroll was a pest, man. Andy Carroll is just like, you saw that man bun coming from a mile away. You're like, dang it. He was a prime player back in the day. Now, man, I can say otherwise. But we'll move on. But congrats to Moise. Congrats to Moise.
Yeah, they're West Ham currently sitting 15th in the table, only 2 points above the relegation battle.
Man.
Bournemouth in 18th. Actually, they're tied with Bournemouth on points, but 2 points above Leicester, who we were just discussing. So keep that in your back pocket. If they get relegated, bet we'll come back to this conversation on his job status. But to what I alluded to, a mixed bag for Thomas Tuchel in his return to football, as he was in Bayern, and they started out really well. Dominant win over Dortmund in the league, and it was a 3-0 affair at one point, finishes 4-2 over Dortmund, and one, Thomas Muller was incredible in this contest, but two, they flopped at the midweek. They were eliminated from an alternate competition, and it was a disappointing performance. I mean, I understand going from a Dortmund to a Freiburg is a drop off, but come on now. Come on now. Jeremy, what do you got?
Look, these things happen to every team. We have to address that. Like Man U, although it is different because I consider Newcastle as like a top tier, top five in the Premier League right now. Look, I mean, you could see this is where you can make the excuse like, oh, it's only his second game. I mean, he had a great sample serving in game number one, beating Dortmund 4-2. Scoring 4 goals against Dortmund is not a easy task. However, you can use the excuse. It's only a second game. He's trying things out. Didn't work. I don't think this hurts him one bit. I get like, it's another, they were going to go for the treble, which they typically make a decent run for the treble like almost every year. They most of the time they end up getting 2 trophies at least, right? They at least get one. The Bundesliga has always been theirs for quite some time now, and they're still in the hunt for that. They're my favorite in the Champions League. We'll get into predictions at the end of the show, but look, yeah, it does stink, right? It does stink to see your team lose to like a team that like, oh man, Freiburg, give me a break. It's like when Man U's playing like a championship side, or Tottenham's playing like a championship side. Although I'm hitting too close to home.
Leave that alone.
Sheffield, I could bring up Sheffield United. Excuse me, sorry, but you get what I'm saying, right? Like it's a little disappointment. But it's okay. They still got Champions League. They still got the Bundesliga. I still think I do think Tuchel is getting one of the two minimum. That's my log. I think Bayern are getting a trophy. As much as I want Dortmund to win the Bundesliga, I still think Munich is getting a trophy, either or Champions League or Bundesliga.
And I don't want to disrespect Freiburg because they are right now in line to be the fourth team to get into Champions League football from the
Yeah,
Bundesliga. They're having a good season, but when you deliver a performance against Dortmund like they did, it is certainly a disappointment to have that kind of turnaround against a club that I don't think it's a stretch to say you would consider Dortmund better than Freiburg. So that's kind of where that sentiment is coming from. But some final thoughts. I'm going to list off some headlines. Jeremy, you tell me what stands out before we do our top 5 MLS rundown. Brighton versus Brentford. This one's a highlight for me. That was a very exciting fixture to watch over the weekend. 3-3 finish, quick action, lots of goals. Love to see it. Real Madrid put the hurt on Barca. I also love to see that. Based on all the issues Barca's having right now, I'm not the biggest fan of the club right now. So seeing them
agreed.
take a hit,
Retweet.
yeah, brought me a lot of joy. Newcastle with an incredible performance in 2 games over the last week. Fortunately for you, Jeremy, first one against Manchester United. But they were dominant against West
Yeah.
Ham the other day as well. 5-1 in that one. City own Liverpool, Arsenal dominate Leeds, and they keep that same 8-point gap. Fiorentina beats Inter, which on the record I did predict. And then Milan dominating Napoli. That was a wild one as well. And then PSG, what happened?
What happened?
1-0 lost to Lyon, and they continue to struggle. And we might actually have a title race on our hands over in League One. Jeremy, what stands out to you?
I can't stand PSG. I really can't. I don't know. I don't know why. Like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is about them. I really don't know. But I've just never been the biggest fan of.
Hey, they're only 6 points up on Lens now.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And Marseille. Marseille is also on 60 points.
I know. So who maybe there's a race in Liga. Maybe Ale Marseille. But look, how could you not love the culture and the just the pure dominance of Real Madrid? That is like the epitome of football. Like I feel like Real Madrid has to be good. Like they're just like a team that just has to be, competing for a trophy, compete for Champions League, competing for La Liga every single year. You go back to those teams with like Raul and Beckham, and even before that, R9 was there. People can school me on earlier history of Real Madrid. I only really know United. Sorry, but it's there. The one of the most successful teams, if not the most successful team in all of European football history. Yeah, it's cool seeing Barca get their comeuppance after what's come out, right? Like, bribing the refs, and that's just stuff that doesn't belong. We talk about the racist chants. This is also stuff like this foul play. Just come on, guys. It's a game. This is a game. We're talking about a game here. Like, you and I are fans of a game.
We're not talking about practice. We're talking about a game.
We talk in practice. But no, I'll end it with Newcastle beating up on United. Look, there's only a few managers that I will be happy at when they beat United. One of them is Eddie Howe. Because at one point, I wanted Eddie Howe to manage Manchester United. And be like, whoa, Jeremy, what? No, Eddie Howe at Bournemouth was elite. He was. I know they got relegated, but when he first brought them up to the Premier League, he kept them at a mid-level. I don't know what the relationship was with the chairman, and obviously they're a team that doesn't have a whole lot of money compared to your cities, Liverpool's, United's, Arsenal's, Tottenham's, whatever.
Now Newcastle,
Chelsea,
they got bread.
They got bread. They don't have Artemi Panarin. Yeah, it didn't look good, but United did turn it around. Beating Brentford 2 days ago, 1-0. Marcus Rashford, got to give my love to my guy. But yeah, those are some of my. I know I was all over the place there, but I will give a 1 clap for Eddie Howe on schooling Eric Ten Hag.
Yeah, and schooling West Ham. I watched that entire game. I was tuning into that one instead of the Man U Brentford, which wasn't a bad tie either. 1-0 win for Man United, a good rebound performance for them, a nice little goal for Marcus Rashford. But I want to come back to Brighton Brentford? That game was so fun to watch.
Yeah.
Both of those clubs have a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. And those teams, even if they're not going to win a game, both of those sides make football fun. They make watching the game fun. And those two teams going at it was really exciting to watch. So seeing a non-Big Six club put on performances and make soccer, football, whatever you want to go with here, that exciting is obviously a good thing. It can only help the game going forward. I did want to touch on Serie A a little bit with Milan beating Napoli 4-0. One, Rafael Leao is incredible. Oh my God, I love this kid. He is so good. If Milan jerseys weren't sold out, I'd be buying a Leao jersey right now. That was they were completely sold out. I was looking at them yesterday.
I love Milan kits, by the way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
if you had to compare the two Milan clubs,
Oh, it's far. It's not night and day.
oh
It's night
my
and day.
God,
Not
no
even
way.
close.
AC
Yeah.
takes it. Black and red, just because my town is black and red, I kind of partial black and red over black and blue. But
Their alternates are sick this year too. Like
yeah,
all
dude,
of their kits are
even the cream color jersey I have
yeah.
is sick. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love them.
But I do want to say this Napoli team, and I think this is where you're kind of going to get at where their vulnerability might be after they've been so good. They are not the same team when they don't have Victor Osimhen. They are not, and that's going to be a big question when they score off in the Champions League. But we're going to get to Champions League stuff, so I'll save the rest of that for later. But we are going to move on now to our top 5 MLS rundown, starting with the Prem. Here are the games that stand out to us. Jeremy, get your thoughts on which one stands out for you. Newcastle and Everton, the first one. Everton picking up form a little bit lately, obviously making me very sad this past Monday. Man United versus wait, hang on. I think I messed up our note sheet. We'll come back to that in a sec. Chelsea against Wolves. Will they win or will they at least score a goal? Tottenham versus Brighton. I am not looking forward to that. That's going to be a very important match. That one's going to be Tottenham and Brighton is going to be a tough one for Spurs fans. And then Arsenal and Liverpool is undoubtedly the one that everyone is going to be keeping their eyes on. So, Jeremy, where are you going to be looking this coming week?
Well, the little hiccup was the Newcastle game. They actually play Brentford, which is another one that we have to keep an eye out for.
Yeah.
Shocker. My eyes are on Man U Everton because of the fact that there's a manager that really gets under my skin when he comes to Old Trafford, or just even when they're playing them at their place, and it's Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche. For when he was the manager of Burnley, he just always found a way to just from the counterattack, just always I go back to Mark Goldbridge for my United fans out there. Owen, I'm sure you're watching. You know who Mark Goldbridge is, and there's this one phrase that just sticks into my mind that when I hear Mark Goldbridge, and it's bloody Burnley. It's just Burnley. Burnley always gave us trouble. Will Everton now, because Sean Dyche is at the helm? Maybe, who knows? I actually like Tottenham Brighton. I really do. I think I can see you guys picking up a cheeky little result maybe against Brighton, maybe get the confidence back. Believe, Sammy. Hey, like Ted Lasso says, got to believe and believe. Come on now.
Hey, I mean, it's hard to believe when a certain character rips the sign.
But
it is a little easier to believe that they're playing at Hotspur Stadium, so that is a reason to believe. But Brighton have just looked very good lately, and I've liked what I've seen from them on the pitch. And Tottenham have not looked very good, and there's a lot of question marks. So it really is, what side are you going to put out against this Brighton team? Tottenham has just been playing so passively. They just sit back and they wait for the game to come to them. And I understand that counterattacking is part of what they're doing under Conte, and now with just 9 games now, they're not going to change it under Stellini. But they've got to be more aggressive and more assertive. They were 1-0 up, a man up, and they were sitting back. That's just not just end it. Just go get a second. It's really all in the mental approach of this team more than the talent, more than even the tactics. I think it's just an approach. Be aggressive. Don't the potential to play European football is in their own hands. Make it happen. Don't leave it to these other clubs. Don't leave it in other teams' hands. And that's where I'll leave that one. And then the other important note about this Arsenal-Liverpool game is the fact that it's being played in Liverpool. I think it's going to be a big factor in that one. I would say Liverpool has at least in recent history, has gotten the best of Arsenal when they've gone on the road. So that'll be an important fixture, especially considering that uh, they only have an 8 point gap. Man City plays Southampton this weekend. That's a likely 3 points for them. Stuff happens. It's the Premier League, but a likely win for Man City. So Arsenal need these 3 points to keep it above a 5 point gap. Because once it gets to that 5 point gap and you're on the same amount of games, things get a little hairy. And I think that's when the pressure is really going to set in for Arsenal. Moving on to Serie A, there isn't a ton going on in terms of the Serie A. There's a lot of favorable matchups for the top teams in terms of Inter, Napoli, Milan. The only game I really wanted to bring up was Juventus and Lazio. Lazio a win in their last game, which was a solid performance for them. Juventus, obviously, the draw against Inter that we touched on in terms of not necessarily the football side of things, but the other side of things. Any thoughts on that game or on Serie A in general right now?
Well, I won't play. I don't want to spoil it, but one of those games, the Juve Lazio game, is a part of my three locks for
Oh,
this week.
okay.
So we'll see
Okay.
where I'm headed. I don't want to spoil it right now.
Well, just for people who might not be completely familiar with where Serie A is standing, Lazio currently second in the table, a bit of a surprise overall in terms of how they've done this season. They've been incredible, sitting at second above Milan and Inter, while Juventus, after their point deduction, are now currently in seventh, just 4 points back of Atalanta in sixth, and only 6 points off a potential top four spot. Inter is on 50, so still within reach despite that point deduction. And then moving over to La Liga, couple potential games to look at. Real Madrid has won against Villarreal, which could be a fun little tie there. Espanyol and Athletic Club is another one to pay attention to. That one's good. And then Bundesliga is one I know, Jeremy, you're pretty excited about one of these matchups being Dortmund and Union Berlin. While Bayern, they get a chance to rebound against Freiburg, this time in the league. So from those two, and actually, I'll just we'll touch League One again, because I want to touch on PSG again. But from those two, La Liga and Bundesliga, what stands out?
I mean, Dortmund Union Berlin is the game that I will be watching this weekend. Although my family is coming for Easter, so I'll see if I have any time to watch some games here. But Dortmund and Union, it's a test for Union. It really is. Because they're dominating, the league below them. But like when they get to teams like Dortmund and Freiburg and even Bayern Munich, it kind of gives them a little bit of, ooh, they get shaken up a little bit. So this will be a good test for Union to pick up a result, some worthy points to solidify their Champions League spot, and hoping they get some Champions League play, because they own the little brother owns the city of Berlin now. And we need Berlin. I respect Berlin as a soccer city. I really do. It's the capital of Germany, obviously, and we need to see some Union Berlin. I would love if Union drew United in Champions League next year. I think that'd be a lot of fun, but we'll see.
That the financial injection of Champions League football to Union of Berlin could do wonders for that club. So
Absolutely.
that would be a real big result for them. And then in terms of league, the one thing I wanted to touch on is that PSG are reeling right now. They really are. And they have Nice coming up, and Nice is a squad that could pose them a lot of trouble, while Lyon have Rennes. So two games to pay attention to. Jeremy, any thoughts on those?
Yeah, we'll see how PSG responds after their loss to Lyon. I mean, PSG just has so much quality to their squad where you might just think like it's just another, walk in the park for them. I do see them rebounding. I think they're a team that will rely on their quality. But Nice is a team that will flirt with Ligue 1 squads. Even though I do see a result for PSG, this one should also be a fun one to keep a tab on for this weekend.
Well, it's just interesting too. If you're looking at PSG in general, in their past four games, they're doing their best Chelsea impersonation. They've only scored one goal. Actually, sorry, two goals, one win. They beat Brest 2-1. But aside from that, they haven't scored against Lyon. They didn't score against Rennes, and they didn't score against Bayern. So a tough run of four games there. So certainly paying attention to what they're going to do and whether they're going to be able to rebound, because they have Lens in their next game after Nice. And then for the rest of the way, not too difficult. But these are a couple games that could potentially send them in a little bit of a, I don't want to say downward spiral, because the rest of their schedule is fairly favorable. but it's going to start putting question marks on where this real project is going because I don't think they're going to be going forward with their current manager. So there's a lot of question marks around them going forward. But any final thoughts before I send it to you for a little MLS?
Well, let's just send it over to MLS right now because I got to get some heat off my chest here. I think the Red Bulls are officially done. I really do. I'm actually glad that I'm in Syracuse, New York, and not in, Hudson County, New Jersey, seeing this mess just unfold at Red Bull Arena. Um, Red Bull dropped their last game to Atlanta 1-0, early like goal within the first like 8 minutes of the game. I don't like the way they're playing right now. But what I do love about the future of MLS is that two expansion teams actually sit atop of both respective conferences right now. So in the East, you have Cincinnati on 14 points. And then over in the West, it's your brand new St. Louis. Shout out Michael Amami, St. Louis SC, 5-0-1, 15 points for the newest, the baby of Major League Soccer. Just shows that, this league just continuing to grow every single day, every single year. But some fixtures to keep an eye out for the MLS. I really like Atlanta against New York City, NYCFC at Yankee Stadium. Also, LAFC against Austin, two of my favorite teams in the Western Conference. It's a rematch of the 2022 Western Conference Final. So that should also be a good one there. Nashville, Toronto, hopefully Nashville gets to don their Johnny Cash Man in Black kit. That's a mouthful. I'm sorry, Sammy. And then I do have a lock for MLS involving Joe Biden's favorite state, Minnesota. So we'll keep an eye out for that one later.
Alrighty. So that'll do it for MLS. It is going to be time for, well, I would say most unique section of our show, which would be the Ted Lasso recap. And it was a lot of drama in this last episode. Jeremy, take it away.
Okay. First of all, it was my least favorite episode of season 3 so far. I'm on the narrative of Sassy and Ted wanting more because that's just the type of person that Ted is with this relationship. And Sassy just being like, hell no. What we have is good. Plus, you're a mess. And when she said that, I'm like, oh my God, it's sad but true. You feel for our boy Ted, but really the main narrative of the story was Richmond heading to the Olympic Stadium to play against West Ham. Nathan Shelley at the helm for the Irons, and Beard and Roy were so invested on like coming up with new tactics and figuring out a way to beat the Wonder Kid. And Ted was just kind of like, let's just see what happens. Let's just play our guys and see what happens. Long story short, they get to halftime and they're down 2-0. And Richmond turned into a team that I have never seen under Ted Lasso and just beat the living piss out of everybody. And there's 3 red cards. Zorro gets a red card. Bumbercatch gets a red card. Richard gets a red card. And, Danny and Sammy are fighting people. And it's insane. And they ended up losing 4-1. Nathan doesn't shake Ted's hand, which is a big thing. However, they were motivated because they saw the video of when Nathan left Richmond, he ripped up the Believe sign. And that's what got them. Like, they came out of the tunnel. And when they came out of the tunnel, I was like, okay, Richmond are motivated here. I'm like, okay, they're going to score. I'm like, nope. They're just going to beat everybody up. 3 red cards. They lose. Rebecca's going through it with Rupert right now. And we also get to see the resurgence of this bond between Roy Kent and Jamie Tartt that I love. I think they're going to be the best of friends by the end of this season. I just love this relationship. He's motivated now. That game really, it took a lot out of people. However, I think that there's going to be a lot of pressure put on Ted in the next coming episodes. I think I don't want to say this, but I think he's destined for like a big, like, he's gonna go nuts. Like he's gonna like lose it one day in front of Beard, in front of Roy, in front of Higgins, in front of the team. Um, but we just wish for the best, and we hope the Greyhounds can bounce back next week. And how do you not love Zava? Zava's the man. He's so awesome.
Yeah, so a couple things I want to add. One, just a name correction. So our boy changed his name.
Zorro, yeah,
Zoro is now Van
Van
Dam.
Dam. I
Van
love
Dam.
it. I love it.
So just wanted to throw that in. That was just like the weirdest twist ever. Thought that was good. I agree completely. I love the Jamie Roy, and I love that he's Jamie taking it seriously after the West Ham game when Jamie
Yeah,
he hits some iron, hits the post. Really excited to see how that one develops. And then there's a couple other things from this episode in general that I want to touch on. The main one being that I actually agree with you that Ted, I think, is going to have a breakdown, but I don't think it's going to be like an emotional, like panic attack again. I think he's going to get mad.
yeah.
Like, I'm
I
going
think
to
he's gonna
see mad
lose his
Ted soon.
marbles. Yeah,
Yeah, we're going to see, and it's not going to be like him putting on that persona again. Like, we're going to see legit mad Ted.
mm-hmm.
I think coming up. Also, I think Shanty is the worst character
Oh my
in
God,
Ted
she's so
Lasso,
bad,
and
so
she's
bad.
ruining whatever Keely's trying to do.
It's so
Again,
bad.
Keely, please don't go back to Jamie. Please don't do that. I will be very sad.
Yeah,
But in general, I really, really hate the Shanty character. But I think you had
I
one more thing before we wrap this section.
no. Yeah. Look, this one hit home. This episode really did hit home because, um, I get a lot of comparisons to Ted, and our buddy Sammy. He says it every day. He's like, Johnny, you remind me of Ted.
Got a
Even though
mustache.
people, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to grow it out for everybody. But yeah, this one really hit home because it shows that people who are so upbeat and who think that you have their head on their shoulders, that they can go through it too. And we're seeing Ted kind of reconnect with his ex-wife. I really hope they get back together because I think there's love there. I hope that his wife and his son Henry can maybe eventually move out to England so that they can reconnect and join that family. But excited for next week's episode.
I will disagree with you on there, but we'll on I think I want that to be a healthy relationship, but I don't think they should get back together. I am still shipping a different relationship for Ted in the future,
Oh.
but we can get to that in the future. It's time to have a little bit of fun. Okay, actually, wait, one more thing before we get to the fun section. He's not a kid. Nathan Shelley is certifiably old. He has gray hair. I don't know what age he's supposed to be, but he is not a kid.
Yeah, no. I
He's
don't
a
know what
wonder
I don't know.
loser.
I don't
He's
know
a
what
wonder loser.
age. I don't even know what age he is. I
He's a
don't even
loser.
know.
I hate his character. We've talked about it on this and off this, but I hate Shelley. He's just the worst.
He's
But okay,
42. Hey, like the actor that plays him is 42.
kid my butt. Okay,
Okay.
all right. Let's move on. Game and history time. Jeremy, take us home.
Okay. So one of my favorite football games that I can remember took place on May 12th, 2013, and it was in the playoffs for the championship. And this was in the second leg for Watford. And oh my God, this is one of the greatest plays in all of soccer history. Leicester have a penalty, and Watford make the save. It was a double save. The ball stays in bounds, and it's one of the most beautiful counterattacks you'll ever see, finished off by a Troy Deeney goal that put Watford through to the Premier League. Watford, tremendous. I kind of miss them in the Premier League, if I'm being honest with you. I like I like their yellow and black. I really do. They just they got some cool uniforms over there. But Troy Deeney giving soccer fans, one of the greatest calls of all time. It's up there with the Aguero from Martin Tyler. But here's Hog Deeney, and like everyone just goes nuts. But yeah, that is my game of the week. Watford Leicester. And then we'll move on to, oh man, okay, this is where I'm under the gun here. Here are my three locks of the week. So week one, I went 2-0-1.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to do a little bit of a queen sweep, a clean sweep here, as I can barely talk. So my first lock of the week, Sammy Bones, it's gonna be in the Premier League. I love what Aston Villa is doing right now. I just love their brand. They're unbeaten in their last 5 games, 4 wins and a draw in their last 5. Saw that happen against Chelsea when they just, beat them. I have them victorious over Nottingham Forest. That is my lock number one. Number two, we hinted at this earlier when you were giving us our top 5 rundown for Serie A. I have the Lazio Juve game as one of my locks. Now you might be saying, Jeremy, are you gonna pick the quote unquote underdog and pick Juventus? No, this one's going to stay in Rome. I'm going Lazio over Juve. Serge Milinkovic-Savic to score. That's also one of my locks there, but put an asterisk even if he doesn't score. I'm just keeping the result. And number 3, I said it before, I'll say it again. Joe Biden's favorite state, Minnesota. Give me the Loons over Chicago Fire for my MLS lock of the week. I love Minnesota. The gray and the light blue. Molto bene, for our friends that speak Italian. And then for our 3 stars of the week, number 3, Kevin De Bruyne. Look, Kevin De Bruyne is just one of the best, if not the best central midfielder in all of world football. Stellar performance for him on the weekend with a goal and an assist. Number 2, you brought his name up. I thought he was also tremendous. Thomas Muller. Side note, one of my favorite videos on Instagram is this girl teaching French. It's, the video of this girl going, la baguette, la croissant. And then it cuts to Thomas Muller going, la Champions League, allez, allez, allez. But anyway, Thomas Muller, this guy to me is like an ageless wonder. I remember being a fan of United early on, and Thomas Muller has always been at Bayern Munich, and he just never disappoints. I think he's great. I love him as a player. Would love to have him at United, honestly, to kind of play like a role player type role. But he is my number 2 star of the week. And number 1, and it's pretty obvious who it is, because when you score a hat trick, there's a great chance that you make my 3 stars of the week. But when you do it in 7 minutes, it's pretty damn spanking and impressive. And that's Karim Benzema. I mean, one of the best strikers to me in football right now. I love Karim Benzema. Just the way he plays. He's very strong, a very just strong central striker. Can just dominate for whoever. And again, he's on that team, that Madrid team that we know and love. That's just they're gaining their original culture back. So to recap, my 3 stars of the week: number 3, Kevin De Bruyne; number 2, Thomas Muller; and number 1, Karim Benzema.
Alrighty, time for your random footballer of the week. And this one's fun. And if you played FIFA in any period before, I'd say like 2014, 2015,
Oh, yeah.
you know who this guy is? Klaus Jan Huntelaar. When we were thinking random footballer, I'm like, they don't have to play anymore. Like, I think it'd be more fun if we had some guys who were retired. This one was like the first one that came to mind when I thought of it. I would say probably his biggest seasons come when he played for Ajax and for Schalke. But he had 2 seasons, 2006, 2007, 2007 to 2008. He went, I think it was combined 55 goals between those 2 seasons. But in general, he was cooking it in when he was playing in the Netherlands, and he did pretty well for the national team as well. Had a couple big performances for them. And then he had one real standout season when he was playing for Schalke in 2011, 2012. He had a 29 goal season. And I think they finished 3rd in the league that season. His club did. But he ended up playing out till 2017, 2016 with Schalke, and then went back to Ajax, and then back to Schalke one more time. So you can tell which clubs he's admired and appreciated that. But he's gonna be our random footballer of the week. And Jeremy, do you know what time it is?
Oh, believe me, I do. I've been waiting for this. for
All right.
for a week.
It is time for your random club guessing. Jeremy,
Okay.
you are 1-0. I am 1-0 with an asterisk because there was an 11th question. So currently you are better than I am at this game. But it is time. Jeremy, what is your first question?
Oh,
And we're going to be better about keeping track of how
yeah.
many questions.
Okay. Question number 1. Is this team in the Bundesliga?
They are not.
Question number 2. Is this team in the Premier League?
They are not.
Question number 3. Is this team in the Serie A?
They are.
Okay. This is when I pull up the list of the teams here, and I kind of have to do my questions to kind of like narrow it down a little bit. All right. Question number 4. Does this team have blue in their badge?
The answer is no.
Okay. Question number 5, correct?
Yes.
Does this team have red in their badge?
They do not.
Okay. Question number 6. Does this team have black in their badge?
They do.
Okay. This would be question 7.
Yes, it will.
You can tell I'm really like
You're putting a lot of thought.
I want this one. I want this
we
one
should
bad.
we should get the Jeopardy theme song going in the
Yeah.
background.
Does this team have green in their badge?
If you're asking if it's a Suolo, no, it's not them.
Okay. All right.
I assume that's where you were looking.
I was looking. Okay. So I have 3 more guesses or 3 more questions before I can make a guess.
Yes, you can guess before that, but you have 3 questions to play with.
Yeah.
Any guess before that just counts as a question.
Okay. So they have no blue, no red, but black.
And no green, but that really only eliminates one team.
Does this team have gold in their badge?
Is that? I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. So that eliminates Juventus. So right now I'm between I'm between 2. I have 2 right in front of me.
You have 2 guesses left, so you might as well just spend it on those 2 and you'll get it if you're right.
Guess number 1. Udinese.
Yes, the temporary home of Destiny Udoji, future Tottenham Hotspur, is our random player of the week. Congratulations, Jeremy. Random club, yes, but random player was the inspiration. Now, the time that I think probably people get the most joy out of, debate time. This is what we save the Champions League. That'll come up on Tuesday and Wednesday next week for. It is time, Jeremy, for our predictions for the Champions League leg 1 of these matchups coming up. Jeremy, I'm going to start this time. I usually pass it to you first.
Yeah,
I'm going to give my prediction first.
You take it. You take it.
We're going to start here. We'll go game by game. We'll go me, then you, me, then you. Inter and Benfica is coming up, and this one's in Lisbon. And Benfica, they've been on a tear lately. They've been doing very well. Inter with a disappointing result. And here's where I was at. So last night, before I saw what happened with Juventus, I was sitting thinking, okay, I think Benfica in Lisbon get the win, undoubtedly. I don't really think there's any questions about that. And I was thinking like 2-0 probably. But I think this game ends up being 2-1, and I'm going to stick with 2-1, but it actually might be a draw. I'm putting it in as a Benfica win, but I would not be surprised if it ends up being a draw. because maybe a little extra added motivation for what just happened with Inter. But for now, I'm going to go with a Benfica 2-1 win over Inter in the first leg.
I'm going to also agree. I went with 1-0 to Benfica, and I think the one goal is going to be scored by Gonzalo Ramos. I think, to me, he's one of the most promising young footballers in all of Europe right now. And I love Benfica. Shout out the Ruivo family if they're watching. I know my friend Ashley and her family are huge Benfica supporters. So I'm going to go with the Eagles, 1-0 over Inter Milan.
Okay. Now we're going to go over to the Etihad. And this is going to be City and Bayern. This is going to be, I would say, it's hard to argue that this is no, it's not hard to argue. This is the biggest matchup. This is the biggest tie. Yeah, I don't think in Real Madrid, Chelsea in a normal year, you could make an argument, but I don't think that one compares to this one. Season, currently in terms of win probability, Manchester City is definitely the favorite. But I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw in this contest. And yeah, draw may be a little bit of a cop-out answer. But I think, again, I think Bayern are going to probably play better. But I think Man City at home are going to find a way to get a draw.
Okay, now I'm going to agree with you. I think Bayern are going to play better. However, I think Bayern get the win here. I think they're going to get a very important win on the road. I'm going 2-1 for Munich. I'm going to go with Tuchel. Just showing Pep who's boss. I firmly believe in this Bayern team. I think they can make a decent run. And come on, man, Thomas Muller, La Champions League, allez. Bayern 2-1 over City.
All right. So next up, Real Madrid and Chelsea. We alluded to this one being played in Spain. Chelsea suck. 4-1 Real Madrid, period. And exclamation point, I think Benzema bags 2 and Vinny gets 1. And then I'm going to say you get the last one from Rodrigo because I love Rodrigo.
Ooh, love Rodrigo too. I'm also going to go with a Real Madrid win. I didn't really put a lot of emphasis on Chelsea sucking as you did. I just looked at it as
Real Madrid. Form is awful right now.
No, I know, but I don't think 4 goals is a lot. I'm going with a solid 2-0 at home Bernabeu.
Benzema has 6 in the last 2 games. Come on.
All right. 2-0. I'm fair. Real Madrid are going to take this one big time.
In Spain, you don't think it's going to be more lopsided?
No. It's the prediction. I hate, I'm not good at predicting blowouts. So if I predict 2-0 and it's 5-1, I'm still a winner, but
I consider me wrong if it's not a blowout because I think this is going to be a massacre. I think this is going to be just straight second half of the first leg Liverpool against Real Madrid. I think this is just going to be I think it's going to be bad. Okay. But this also might just be my stance on where Chelsea is as a club, playing into that a little bit. But Real Madrid have picked up form in the way they just put a 4 on Barca. They won 4-0 against Barca, the top of the table in the Liga. But okay, we'll move on. Last game, Milan, Napoli. So this one very much hinges on whether Osimhen's going to be available for me. And I think if Osimhen is available, this one is a draw. This one being played in Milan. So I think this ends up being a draw with Osimhen, and I think Milan win if Osimhen doesn't play. I'm going to cross my fingers, say Osimhen plays, and I'm going to go with a draw 2-2.
I'm going to go with a draw as well. I'm going to go 1-1 just because I really had a hard time picking a winner with this one because I was taking, Osimhen, will he play, will he not? However, this one just screams equalizer, right? So I'm going to say 1-1 because I think both teams just play on a little even playing field right now. Milan getting the best of Napoli recently. So maybe Napoli kind of, bunkered down a little bit and both teams are going to have to duke it out in a second leg.
All right, Jeremy, give us our Ted Lasso quote.
Okay, here we go. I went with a little funnier one this time. So let's
okay.
See. Little tip for y'all. Fries are called chips. Chips are called crisps. And bangers aren't great songs, but they do make you feel like dancing because they're so darn tasty.
As always, well said, Jeremy. Well said, Ted Lasso. This has been 90+2 Podcast. I'm Sammy St.Jean, and that is Jeremy Striano. This is the crossroad between pundits and fans. We are aspiring soccer journalists who have a love for the game, and this is our starting point. That was episode 3. Thanks for listening. We will see you guys next week.
Bye.